Hi, I'm Tom Eschen, the host of this Power Politics podcast, a conversation about the issues that are impacting New Yorkers and beyond the most with the people that are making those decisions and holding them accountable too. Today we continue our preview of the November election in New York Senate's 44th District. Incumbent Jim Tedisco going up against the Democrat Minita Sanghvi, who's also the Commissioner of Finance in Saratoga Springs. You can see the Jim Tedisco interview right now on CBS6 Albany, but we also spoke today with Minita Sanghvi about her role as the Commissioner of Finance at Saratoga Springs and what's led to some of the different issues going on in that city at this time. But we also speak about many more issues impacting the state as a whole, including the Equal Rights Amendment, immigration, and much, much more. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Just look for Power and Politics. You can also see it on our YouTube page, CBS6 Albany. Minita, we thank you so much for coming on with us here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So as you've continued to campaign now for the past few months and you've been around the district, we have a lot of issues to get to, but is there one thing that you think the people of the 44th Senate District are talking about the most, the biggest issue on their mind right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of the main issues obviously are affordable housing. I know my opponent loves talking about how we are the empty state. What he doesn't know is actually his district, which, to be fair, was Daphne Jordan's district. He only ran in this district and primaried his own friend and colleague because he was too scared to face off with Neil Breslin, where he was living. But the biggest issue in our district actually is that we are growing, and we've grown 9% over the last decade. And so affordable housing, affordable healthcare are the key main issues. And then infrastructure, right? A lot of people want their roads and bridges repaired. They want sidewalks and bike lanes. When I go door to door, young families tell me they want more sidewalks and bike lanes. And this is an issue my opponent has actually voted against. He's voted against complete streets. So it's really, some of the main issues that he's not even hearing or he's not even understanding. He's put a bill about out-migration. And I'm like, dude, people are coming into our district. We want to make sure that they have all the resources. They have affordable housing, affordable health care. And he votes against insulin co-payments and he votes against lowering the cost of prescription drugs. It's really shocking how out of touch he is and how ineffective he is.
When you talk about affordable housing, I'll start here with that, because I'm curious, as someone that has been based in Saratoga now for a while, you have to expand that reach a little bit more to different jurisdictions with a lot of different issues. How do you apply affordable housing to a place beyond Saratoga? We know it's expensive to live in Saratoga. What about in a place like Schenectady or elsewhere in the district?
Look, no matter where we go, people are talking about how we need more affordable housing. And there are different models of affordable housing. There's workforce housing, there's affordable housing. In Saratoga Springs, we have 200 units that just went online for affordable housing and workforce housing. We have another 170 plus that are in the pipeline that we have okayed and are in the planning process. I saw in Corinth, the mayor approved supportive housing. Now, you have a lot of people who are mentally, challenged, who have some needs that are, sort of sometimes homeless, sometimes, trying to find spaces for them. And supportive housing helps with that. It ensures that, we don't have people that are homeless who basically just need some more help with their mental health issues. And so, there are lots of different models that are out there that we could be, using all over the district.
You touched on the out-migration and not necessarily pertaining, as you say, statistically to the district, but that is something the governor mentioned in the State of the State and in terms of attracting people here, even when it comes to tourism. Of course, Saratoga, you know that well.
Yes.
What kind of initiatives do you think can help propel New York, not even beyond just Saratoga, but to the rest of the district, to get people to come and to stay at this point?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Out-migration is an issue for New York State, just not for our district. The ERA is a really good example of creating a safe haven in New York. So this allows us, these are rights that we already have, and we're going to basically codify them and put them in our Constitution. Now, I will tell you a little story. When I was finishing my PhD, we had just gotten married, my wife and I, in North Carolina, where marriage was not legal yet. And so we had gone to Massachusetts to get married. And when I started looking for jobs, she said, listen, this is the place I've grown up. This is where my family is, my parents, my brother. And she said, I will leave only if we are going to a place that has equality. And so when I applied for jobs, there were 11 states I could apply to. And we picked New York because we felt safe here. And, you know, we are a same-sex couple that's interfaith. We have a biracial son. And so we were worried about our safety. And the ERA helps not just people you know, who are LGBTQ, but it helps women who have had abortions or who are pregnant. It helps disabled people. It helps, you know, a whole bunch of people to feel safer in our country, in our state. And that's really what we need. We need people to say, oh, I have better rights in New York. That's why I would want to move there.
We'll touch on the Equal Rights Amendment a little bit more. I'd love to dive deeper into that, maybe in our extended version. Just a quick follow-up to you, and obviously you're a trailblazer in many different ways, and would it be even in this role? I do want to say, in this district that's voted a little more conservatively, how do you want to reach some of these voters that that do think a little bit differently than you might? I guess, how do you relate to that when this is a district that has voted differently in the past?
Yeah, so this district has changed quite a bit, and we have a lot of new, like I said, people coming into the district who are sort of more left-leaning, let's say. But keep in mind, like, I have worked on the shop floor at Walgreens and Walmart. I know what life is like. I've lived for 6 years in Arizona. I've lived for 7 years in North Carolina. And I've worked my way up to corporate America and then eventually got a PhD. So I really understand life as a working class family, trying to make ends meet. I understand life, you know, and the needs of middle class America in a way that I feel is unique to what I'm bringing to the table for the Senate. But I also understand finance and budgets. And I feel like all of those are important needs. And I think what people want is they want somebody who's competent. They want somebody who's going to get the job done. And, you know, we have my opponent, who is one of the most ineffective state senators we have. You know, he sent out a mailer recently in which he talks about how he authored a bill. That's one of the first real results he talks about. And I can tell you, authoring a bill is like me coming home with a bunch of tomatoes and telling my wife, honey, I made pizza. That's not how it works. And my wife, who's Italian, will tell me, like, sweetheart, you need to have the dough, you need to prepare the dough, you need to have the sauce, you need to grate the cheese, and then you have pizza once it's in the oven. Authoring a bill is taking us nowhere.
You talk about getting things done, and your opponent, and you know there are legislative bills that he has passed. You know, he speaks highly of the Moreau Lake and getting the cameras in the budget last year. But I do want to say that at the same time, how do you plan to be able to move legislation and be able to speak to both sides of the aisle when, you know, obviously you've been working in a council position as one of the commissioners in Saratoga. How do you want to relate to others, even Republicans, to be able to get bipartisan support for bills? And I think that's important to a lot of people these days.
Absolutely. And you know, look, I have worked with Democrats that I did not agree with, and I've worked with Republicans. You know, currently we have a Republican mayor, and he may not see eye to eye with me on a lot of issues, but we both strongly believe that, you know, homelessness is an issue that we need to resolve in Saratoga Springs. And so we both have been working to make sure that we are moving in the right direction for that. And so really, you know, what I like to do is find areas of commonality. You know, what are some of the things that we can work on, and then work on that. And, you know, if you and I agree on 2 things and we disagree on 98, let's focus on the 2 and work on that. You know, Commissioner Cole, who's also ran on the Republican line, he and I also agree on, you know, the homelessness and stuff. So he had these, we used to have these things that you could put money in, you know, change and stuff like that, all through Broadway. And a few years ago, they got vandalized and the program shut down. And Commissioner Cole said, hey, we want to start this up again, and I was like, we're not going to take like loose change and money, like that's a bad idea. And he's like, no, this will have QR codes. And the money can go straight to Rise and Shelters of Saratoga, who help with these issues. And we thought it was a great idea, and we put it up as a test case, and it's running really well. So you have to find ways of working together. Now, sorry, and I know you've asked me a couple of things. I do want to point out, Senator Tedesco, when that little girl was abducted in Moreau, and God knows we all felt so deeply for that family and the little girl. Yeah. He said he was shocked to find out that there were no cameras. He serves on the Parks and Recs committee. He should not be shocked to find out. He should have done the research and put the cameras in place before and prevented the issue. And keep in mind, when that little girl was abducted, he put out a press statement about all the stuff he's done for missing children. And I looked into the bills that he was talking about. He was talking about Mario Cuomo's administration and the work he did then. I mean, come on. Half the people, are not even alive then that are going to be voting for him. So it's really hypocritical of him to talk about work that he did in 1983 and then try to pretend as if it applies to today and in 2024. Back
to the council really quickly.
Yes.
Not necessarily, even in the past administrations, for having the best relationships with each other, and it seemed more as a chaotic environment. I guess, how do you respond to that? And you say you do try to work together, but do you think, that, how do you speak to that at the end of the day? Because I know that the reputation isn't necessarily as being the most congenial environment there.
No, Saratoga, like I often joke, there's not dearth for drama there. But, I have often been called the voice of reason on the Saratoga Springs City Council. And if you see the City Council, I'm usually not in that middle of that drama. I'm often trying to find ways to get people together. First it was Ron and Dylan, and then Jim and Dylan, and then Ron and Jim, and then sometimes now it's John Safford and Dylan. So, there's all sorts of, combinations there. But oftentimes I'm usually the one trying to find connections and combinations that work, that people will agree to. And really, that's what we need to keep moving forward. Our constituents want somebody who does the job. They don't care about all this bickering, they don't want food fights. They want food on the table, and they want it at a low cost. So that's what I work towards.
I want to, we do have some of the bigger state issues to talk about still, but I did want to still follow up. I asked you about a certain budget line yesterday, going through some things, and it came upon this research knowing that tomorrow you're going to have some business leaders speaking with the mayor about the paid parking program and the effectiveness of that, how they felt about that. Some, as you probably have heard in the media, have been a little upset, saying it's impacting their bottom line. I wanted to look up the numbers and see what they're doing sales tax-wise, because usually you kind of look at that at the end. In 2024, in the budget that was proposed a few weeks ago now, 10.7 million, with the predicted was 19.5 million in terms of sales tax.
2024 was 19.5 million. That's correct.
Which was the project. That's what the
projected was. And we should get there.
You think you'll get there, even though right now, I mean, that goes back a few weeks. It's only at 10.5.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Line?
Absolutely.
How do you make up that much money in 3 months?
They are usually on a lag, so we are not even seeing the full summer months yet.
So do you, I guess, with that in mind, you have these business leaders that are frustrated about the parking.
Yeah.
Is there something to what they're saying? Do you think this is something to go back to the table about? Where do you stand on this issue?
Look, we are a city that's growing. The mayor was just talking about this in an op-ed he put out in the Saratogian. We have the 3rd fire station. We have hired 16 new firefighters. We have our first ever homeless shelter. We have built more sidewalks and more bike lanes than ever before. We've got more parks, more renovations, more rec programming. All of this doesn't come cheap, right? We have to pay for all of this. And 88% of our budget is personnel and benefits. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people, the health insurance has kept going up and up and up. And the city has to come up with funding that. And so we really need new avenues of revenue. And I've been saying that from the get-go. If we are providing more services, we need more revenue. Paid parking was a fantastic program in that it did not impact our residents, right? It was only during the tourist season. So, people who are living in Wilton and Ballston Spa can come to us anytime except for the, high tourist times, and park for free everywhere. And if you're living in Wilton and you want to park even during the peak summer times, you can still park on the street. There's lots of street parking all over the city, and it's free. But the garages also need to be maintained. And, we had a lot of people who were living in garages. People didn't want that. So there have to be, pros and cons to all issues. And sales tax has gone up in June, in July, and August. So I know there are some very vocal critics, but you will find that they are small in number. They're just more vocal. And overall, the residents didn't mind it at all. They were fine with it.
So let's go now to the state level. Let's talk, of course, it's been a hot topic nationally, and then New York specifically because of, the influx of immigrants, as we talk about immigration down in New York City, and then some coming up to the capital region. Albany County, the majority of which have come there. Dan McCoy says they've handled it pretty well, I guess they could say. I mean, you could talk to some of those organizations, and they can tell some of the struggles that they faced. Notwithstanding, you talk about the budget a lot, and you hear, especially those on the other side of the aisle, are very critical of the $2.1 billion that was spent, that has been, I guess, allocated towards immigration, housing, legal services, what have you. Do you think the state is going about this in the best way to handle these individuals that are coming in and to help them transition at this point with that funding in mind?
Look, I think there's always room for improvement. But I can tell you one thing, right? Again, my opponent talks about out-migration. This is an opportunity for us to gain the people, and we desperately need the workforce in Saratoga. In Saratoga, when you talk to business owners, they're talking about they need more labor in the fields, in the farms, or in the rural areas. You talk about restaurant owners, they talk about needing more labor in the kitchens and stuff. You talk about track workers, they need more labor there. So we're constantly in need. Our for hire signs are constantly up, whether it's big businesses, small businesses, and we're, the district, like I said, is growing. We've got Regeneron coming, we've got Soleno coming, we've got, more expansion happening in Malta with Global Foundries. So we need more people to help, sustain our growth, and most of the businesses are welcoming these immigrants coming in. And look, I'm an immigrant myself. I can tell you, I bet your ancestors were immigrants here. Mr. Tedesco's ancestors were immigrants.
My great-grandmother, yeah. She came from Poland, yeah.
And Megan's great-grandmother also came from Poland. Mm-hmm. So we all are here as immigrants. And I can tell you personally, no person leaves their home and country and everything that they've known to come to another land just for, They are coming here and they're giving up everything that they know because they want a better life for themselves and for their kids. And, to demonize them and try to talk about them as if they are something that's sort of, dirt or cockroaches or vermin, it really doesn't suit someone who is the son or grandson of immigrants.
Do you see it as a public safety issue?
If it becomes a public safety issue, absolutely. Look, I am a strong believer in public safety. In Saratoga Springs on the city council, our public safety budget was $25 million when I started, and it is $36 million right now. That's an $11 million increase in our public safety budget. Because I believe that the best way the police can do their jobs is if we make sure that they are equipped to do their jobs. That includes more training. That includes body cameras. That includes, ballistic missile vests. Yeah. Sorry. And, we hired 16 new firefighters. We got ladder trucks and ambulances. So we've put in a lot of money into our public safety department to make sure that they're able to do the job as best as they can.
There are some individuals in Saratoga that would argue against increasing that funding. Sure. And I know that they've been hypercritical, and of course we just saw them on Tuesday night, the members of Saratoga Black Lives Matter. I shouldn't just cover it up, but they said they're going to try to adopt their own plan, get their own officials, because they don't believe in the policing that's happening right now. But you say that this investment has made a difference?
I definitely feel that we've done the best we can in trying to equip them. I'm not the public safety commissioner. Only the public safety commissioner can tell you whether, what sort of a difference has been made. But one of the things that, I worked with Mr. Cole, the public safety commissioner, was he wanted to get more peer-to-peer counseling. And he tried to work with the county to see if we could get a social worker embedded with the police. And unfortunately, that wasn't going anywhere. So I worked with him and with some other local organizations that are nonprofits to figure out a plan that would help move that forward. So we are constantly working to try to make it better, to make sure that, you have other responses besides just the police addressing a situation.
I'll bring up this, even though from what I've heard, not many changes are coming, but it's talked about a lot, bail reform. And you talk about public safety in Saratoga. Of course, you had the Lola. Second time it was burglarized. And your opponent was very critical, saying that you supported the 3 individuals that were released on bail, and because of that, he obviously released a statement, was very critical of that aspect. Did you support them, and how did you feel about the way that situation was handled by the judge and being able to release them in that case?
First of all, like I told you, I've worked on the shop floor at Walgreens. I was robbed at knife point. Okay, I would never support anybody who burglarizes or robs anything. I believe in the full measure of justice, and I believe that our courts are equipped to do that. In this case, this was, I believe, their first offense, and they were charged and then released, and then they came back to court and got their hearing and stuff like that, and got their day in court. This is what our legal system is supposed to do, and it did. I don't understand why keeping them and then having the taxpayers pay for their time incarcerated while they're waiting to get their day in court makes sense. If Mr. Tedisco can fiscally explain that to me, good for him. But I am a finance person. That doesn't make sense.
Do you think the bail reform laws are working?
I think that they could be tweaked. I think that, especially on issues of domestic violence, that they could be made stronger. And, again, talk about hypocrisy. My opponent talks about, domestic violence and stuff. He's voted against domestic violence survivors when there was a bill that would prohibit domestic violence perpetrators from getting guns. And he voted against it. So, you can't have it both ways. Either you are for an issue or just to, bring it out and use it when you want to. That's not how that works.
Let's transition now to the Equal Rights Amendment. This is something that kind of, I think you gained a lot of your, political prowess, I guess you could say, or political punch with equal rights, working around the country to advocate for this. And now here you are, as you say, because of the laws in New York State and the situation here. I want to present to you, I guess people probably see the signs, they see, all sorts of narratives around this, but I would like you to respond to them saying this was going to hurt women's sports. They say we need to protect, this is going to impact women's sports. They say this is going to impact parental rights and that it's going to impact voting for non-citizens and have a negative impact on all of those things. Some of those tenets of what's being pushed back when people say no to vote to Proposal 1. How do you respond to some of those claims being made right now?
Some of those claims, I've heard them, and it just, for the most part, makes me laugh because they're like, your son will go to school and come back a girl. And I'm like, listen, I've talked to our teachers. What they want is more pencils, more erasers, more sharpeners, more resources. They don't have time to perform surgery on your child, nor are they equipped to do that. So these are just fear-mongering issues that people are trying to, create situations. I believe when you were discussing this yesterday, you talked about a school system where there wasn't any case, and they said that, was it Bethlehem, is that correct?
That was down in Nassau, it was Nassau County, I believe.
Right,
when the county executive down there had an executive order about funding and what have you, if this were to be the case, and that got a lot of headlines, but I actually spoke with the congressman down there, and he said they tried to find an instance where this happened, and they said they did not find any evidence of that. So that's what
and that's exactly what I'm saying, right? The Equal Rights Amendment, like I said, it ensures. Now keep in mind, I'm a firm believer of reproductive rights and freedoms. including IVF, which I know a lot of families use, and again, which my opponent has voted against, whether it's the rights of disabled people, whether it's the right of elderly people based on national origins. Our hate crimes have gone up significantly through the state. Most of them are around race and religion. So most of them are around religion, then race, and then LGBTQ individuals. This is an issue that's serious, and we came very close, especially in Saratoga County, which actually voted for Mr. Zeldin, right? And he is a very anti-abortion person. His "Don't Say Gay" bill was worse than Florida's "Don't Say Gay" bill. So you can't have somebody like that, become governor and then be like, oh, if only we had done this. This is the moment where we can put this in the Constitution and make sure it's protected no matter who is the governor, no matter, and look, right now the Democrats have a majority, but that's a new phenomenon. They didn't have the majority. The Republicans were the majority in the Senate until 2018. And they voted for a lot of things, or they suppressed a lot of votes, including Child Abuse Victims Act, which they repressed for 13 years. Gender, took 16 years to pass. So these are hard-fought victories that people have got, and we need to make sure that we are protecting them.
And obviously, you look at some of those narratives being talked about on that other side. Do you see anything to that? Is there any concern that there could be unintended consequences here? Or is there any doubt in your mind, I guess, about Proposal 1 at this point? Is there anything you would change about it? Obviously, as someone that's kind of looking as probably a voter yourself.
I'll tell you something. Giving people rights has never seemed to be a problem anywhere at any point of time that I remember in history, whether it's our civil rights, whether it's marriage equality, whether it's being able to serve in the military openly. So far, every single time they're like, oh my God, if gay marriage passes, straight marriage will fall apart, couples will start getting divorced, anarchy will happen. I can tell you, all the straight couples on our street, their marriages were just fine when we moved in, and they've stayed fine. And we had nothing to do with any of it.
Since you've come here, and since you've come out, and you've been obviously now in a more public eye than ever, how have you felt? Like you said, you came here because you felt like you would be accepted. Have you felt that way in this area?
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. When Megan and I used to go to a hospital in North Carolina, we had to take a marriage certificate everywhere, to prove to people that we were married, and so that she could stay with me in the room, or I could stay with her in the room. And when our son got delivered here in Glens Falls, we took our marriage certificate because we're so used to that, and they're like, oh my God, we don't need such stuff. and the joy, the pride that I got when I saw my name and Megan's name on our birth certificate, for our son, and to have that right and that privilege that people take so blithely here, it's just it's a given for so many people. Absolutely, and when I ran in 2021 for City Council in Saratoga Springs, I was going door to door, and somebody called the cops on me. And it was, because of the color of my skin, and I understand, sort of how that came about. But I got a call from our Attorney General's office, from Letitia James' office, saying, hey, we saw this, we flagged it as a hate crime, as a possible hate crime, and we talked about it and all of that. I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt like my state cares about me, Yes, absolutely. And I want that feeling for parents of LGBTQ kids, or for parents who have kids, who are young girls, and they're worried about, their access to their rights, and for people trying to start families who want to access IVF. I want everybody to feel that. I want everybody to feel equal.
I did want to ask you, this is a little bit different, because you have written books before, and because of course, our current political climate, I did want to ask you about one book specifically. You probably know what it is. It's called Gender and Political Marketing in the United States and the 2016 Presidential Election, an analysis of why she lost.
That's right.
Do you see any parallels? Of course, you have Donald Trump once again as the Republican, and you have him going up against another woman in this case here in 2024. Do you see any parallels from 2016 to 2024? Are some of the same things happening that you wrote about?
Well, there are some tropes that got brought up right away, you know, as soon as Kamala Harris announced that she was running. You know, they talked about her as a Jezebel, which are, you know, very typical tropes. So Patricia Hill Collins has a great book, and she talks about tropes that are often used against Black women, Jezebel, the matriarch, the mammy, you know, lots of things like that. When Trump says she's low IQ or that she's a DEI hire, you know, those are all things that he's trying to, you know, dog whistle, right? So there's definitely some parallels, but I think overall the issue of gender has become a lot less important. People have sort of moved on, and in some ways almost trying to avoid, because they don't want a Hillary 2.0, or rather a 3.0, right? Because in 2020 we had 6 women candidates who all ran, and neither of them, any of them could win any of the states that they ran. You know, so yeah.
Interesting. I just want to hear your perspective, because obviously it's been one of the bigger talking points as soon as Joe Biden dropped out. Kamala, of course, taking over, and maybe hopefully this will be more about the candidates right this time around, and you could only hope. Before we go, I just wanted to ask you, as you when you started the interview like this, as you expand your scope beyond Saratoga, of course we talked about Saratoga in your current role, but also you have these other municipalities. How do you go about trying to relate to the people in Schenectady, the people in maybe Clifton Park, or I guess beyond there, you know, beyond just the borders of Saratoga, as someone that has been so focused on that for so long? Like, what do you do to be able to, you know, speak to that different population?
So one of the things I started way back in January was every weekend, usually Sundays, I go to a different church or faith-based organization and spend time in our community learning their needs. So I've been to churches in Schenectady, in Niskayuna. I've been to Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Unitarian, First Reformed, AME Zion. I've been to synagogues, you know, all across the district, from Temple Sinai to Agwadat Akim and Congregation Gates of Heaven. I've been to the Sikh temple, and I hear, you know, what is it that people are telling us, and you know, different areas have different needs. There's homelessness in some place, there's food insecurity in others. In Moreau, it's about Saratoga biochar and how they don't want them to come into their area, which I have strongly supported, and Mr. Tedesco hasn't. In Niskayuna, it's a lot about water and sewer, you know, and those are key infrastructure projects that, you know, people find boring, but we need them for economic development. You know, one of the things that I have been proposing is creating an innovation corridor that would connect Saratoga, Schenectady, Albany. We are getting a once-in-a-lifetime money, you know, coming in from the Chips and Sciences Act, from Kathy Hochul's AI agenda, from the semiconductor development and research here, and we need new ideas like that. And so having those conversations, understanding those needs, whether it's in Clifton Park or Half Moon or Malta, Moreau, that's what I've been doing. I've been spending these last 8 months talking to people, not ribbon cutting.
Minita, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on with us. Good luck.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button right now so you can stay up to date on these news-making conversations about the issues impacting New Yorkers the most: power and politics.